Oftentimes in the high-end world, we see companies trying to do something different just to differentiate themselves, but it's not necessarily better. What happens when something is different and good? Really good. So guys, welcome to another Greek Audio Geek. I am Michael, I am Greek. I love audio, so I'm kind of an audio geek. Today's gonna be an interesting video for me. Recently I did a video on a pair of horn speakers, which I gushed over, because at the end of the day, in my heart, I am a big fan of a great horn speaker and a tube amplifier. That's just a sound that I am drawn to. I also feel as though there are a lot of excellent traditional box speaker designs with traditional drivers. Some are really good. Many are mediocre at best. It's just not a sound I really enjoy. So I've gravitated over the decades to horn speakers. But I had the opportunity at the Florida Audio Show, 2024, to hear the Clarisys, the big brothers of these are the Clarisys Audio, these are the Piccolos, their newest model. I heard their big brother, their big brother version, the Auditoriums. And in my opinion, it was the best of show. It was the best room in the show. There were 2 or 3 other rooms that I thought were exceptional as well, but overall as a room, it was just incredible. They had giant 7-foot tall Clarisys. It was a huge room. It had bass, it had dynamics, it just had poise. It was wonderful. So when they came out with a smaller version, I was all excited to try them. But for me, as part of my audio adventure and my audio journey, this was gonna be a big step for me. I really didn't have much experience with speakers such as these. You get into your ribbons and your planars and things like that. One of the advantages to them, well, let me take a step back. First, let's cut to the chase on this speaker. And this is what I think is amazing. It's under $20,000. You get an amazing amount of speaker for that. You can have any custom color you want. I love this beautiful blue. They are speakers where I think if you're in the $15,000 range, you should stretch and listen to them. I think if you're in the $25,000 range, I think you should still listen to them, even if you're looking to spend more. They are really, really good. But to be clear, they're not something like a horn speaker where you have 98 dB efficiency and you can run a 7 or 8 watt 300B tube amp on it or solid state or whatever. You're going to want to make sure that these are matched with the right solid state amp. These are, if I remember correctly, 86 dB efficiency at 4 ohms. So you're going to want a different amp on these than you would on, let's say, your bigger Clarisys, where you start getting into 88, 89 dBs and 6 ohms. So just make sure that if you do purchase them, that whomever you're working with, whatever deal, they'll make sure you have the right stuff for it. But guys, that's true with any amplifier. I mean, I'm not gonna put a very analytical sounding solid state amplifier on my horn speakers. So it's neither here nor there. It's just a statement of fact for any gear you get. But these, I was trying to figure out how I could describe these speakers, because in my impressions in listening to them, it was, I'd put on my Frank Sinatra, or I'd put on my Holly Cole, or my Maria Callas with her opera. It had this wonderful openness sound, very unboxed-like. What I mean by that is, typically in a lot of traditional speakers, when you're listening to these singers, you can hear that the sound's emanating from a box. And if you can't pick that up, I would suggest that once you hear a pair of speakers that don't sound like that, something like this, or maybe even a good horn speaker, that once you go back to other speakers, you can then pick it up very easily. So these were incredibly open sounding, just relaxed. And before I get more into that, I wanted to come up with an analogy of how I could describe these. I would say this, because here's the highest compliment. There's 2 highest compliments I can give these. One, supremely musical. And for those of you who follow my channel, you know, for me, it's all about musicality. I am not a high-end, hi-fi, analytical type person. I want my toe tapping. I want my head bobbing. I want to be not fatigued. I want to be drawn into the music. These are excellent at that. The other compliment that I can give these, as much as I loved my horn speakers, somebody asked me, Michael, would you trade in your horn speakers and your tube amp for these in a solid state? And I would say, sorry guys, here in Texas, it's been 106 degrees. My allergies are killing me. I would say 50%. And here's what I mean by 50%. There is 50% of the time where I would want to listen to my tubes and horn speakers, and there's 50% of the time I would want to listen to these speakers. That's the highest compliment I could ever give speakers, that you actually make me want to listen to them more. And that it's actually a toss-up where I could see some days on some moods would be dependent on the speaker you wanted. If you remember on that last review, I said in my dream system, I would have 2 or 3 different types of speakers, probably 3, that I could just switch between. But here's the analogy I came up with on these. Think of them as a fine sports car where, let's use Ferrari for instance. You've got 2 different models. You've got the ultra high performance model, and then you've got the grand touring models. And when I say this is all relatively speaking. The grand touring model may be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more comfortable. You could take it out on a longer cruise and get out not fatigued and just want to continue to drive. Whereas with the super sports cars, for those moods where, man, you want to tackle those curves and you're ready to put nail it. But it's so relative because in no way is the GT a less capable car or anything but an extremely high performance car. It's just relative to each other. So that's how I liken these speakers, in my personal feeling, towards the horn speakers that I love, that it's 2 diametrically opposed, completely opposite ways in which they go about something, but they both accomplish the same goal. That is, making me want to listen to music, making me want to just sit there for hours, involving me in the music, and being supremely musical. Now, I did listen to these primarily with 2 different electronics. I did the Audiophile Z5000 and the Solution 330. Now, I believe there's a newer version of the Solution integrated, which is the 331. I may be mistaken. I'm not up on my Solution stuff. But they both performed in terms of really making these sound musical, making these sound like you're listening to the emotion. I could really feel on Frank Sinatra's Fly Me to the Moon. This had Frank with swagger. This had Frank giving attitude. If I listen to this song on my horn speakers with a typical solid state, you lose a lot of that emotion. With these speakers with solid state, Frank had that swagger. He had that attitude. The dynamics, and this is where I get into the difference between the GT version of the Ferrari and maybe the high performance version of the Ferrari. Dynamics ultimately were not blow you back in your seat. Well, you wouldn't expect that, guys. It's a smaller speaker. If you want that, you get the bigger version. It's a different type of driver. It's a different type of experience. But if you want something that's going to make you just smile and be part of the music, and it made me want to listen to Frank. He sounded open. You could hear, the brush on the drums. You could hear it going back and forth. Which, once you hear that on great speakers, it's an amazing piece to focus on with systems and speakers, because a lot of them just, no pun intended, brush over that. You can't really tell what's going on. I could hear that with these. Or Maria Callas with her Act 1, what's the name of that? It's the Norma Act 1 Costa Diva. Wow, when she belts it out, I mean, her voice just keeps getting more and more, and you're like, she can't go any higher. She can't go any more powerful. And she does. These speakers had no problem making you feel the emotion in her voice. Whereas with other gear and other systems, it seems like she's just going through the motions, and she's a robotic version of it. I could go on about these speakers. Look, guys, you're not going to fill up a 40 foot by 40 foot room. You're not going to do the vocal trance at rave-like levels. Again, for that, you need bigger speakers in general and go up further in their line. But for somebody who is anywhere near that price point of $20,000, above or below it, who wants the musicality, who wants the emotion, who really wants a beautiful looking speaker. I mean, guys, this is so unique and so beautiful. And I love the fact that you can do any color. What you do is you can download the RAL color catalog from Amazon or wherever, and you just tell them the code number that you want on it. It's kind of a no-brainer. I think even if this isn't a type of speaker that you've enjoyed before or that you even heard, you owe it to yourself to hear it. May not be your cup of tea, but I think it's something that will really surprise you. Just like the horn speakers I like, a lot of people who don't like horns now like them, even though they don't like horns. I think this is gonna bring over a lot of people who traditionally would not have thought about this speaker or this design speaker and end up buying them. I mean, look at the history of Clarisys. This particular speaker just won Best of Show at the California Audio Show. I don't know the full name of that. Their Clarisys speakers are continually winning Best of Show at other places. I told you it was the best room. I heard it at the ginormous Florida Audio Expo. All the reviews are superlative on them. On a lot of their models, there's a wait list to get them. So I would say you have to check it out. Now, for me personally, I know it's going to happen. I've already gotten messages from people saying, Michael, would you buy these? I would have to say this, because you guys know I don't care what you buy. I'm not here to tell you to buy anything. I'm just here to tell you about my audiophile adventure. I would say this would be an extremely tough decision for me, because there is so much of the time where this speaker does so much right and checks off so many boxes for me. If I were in the price point of around 20,000, these would be in my top 3. No question about it, that I would have to decide upon. And the deciding factor would probably be what are my upstream electronics, the size of my room, and the type of music that I'm going to be listening to. For me, I envision myself with a larger pair of Clarisys because I have a very large room here. And for me, I could see something more in line with like the Studio Plus, let's say. So that's a yes, in the sense that yes, I love Clarisys. Yes, I love the sound of these, but solely for the fact that I've got an extremely large room. Yeah, these speakers are great. The other thing you need to know is that these are going to be positioned differently than a lot of your other speakers. My other speakers, I took out all my AGS diffusion stuff for these speakers, and they worked really, really well with that. These speakers are much further out in the room than my horn speakers, whereas my horn speakers may have been 3 feet from the wall. These were 6, 7 feet out from the wall. So you're going to need to make sure that you've got the right setup for that. I will tell you, where this is a mixed use room, what I do is I mark where the perfect spot is for my speakers. Just put a little bit of narrow green painter's tape, and I keep them on sliders. And I can just slide them out of the way when I'm not listening and put them back in when I am listening. If you have a dedicated room, that's even better. You can get them just right. So you need to listen to them if you're anywhere there. I think you're really going to love them. I think there's a high likelihood you're going to end up buying them, frankly. But Clarisys, well done. And I still dream that someday I will have a pair of Studio Plus in my room, because I would be rocking and rolling with those things every single night. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one. I'm the Greek Audio Geek, and I approve of this message. Opa!